Hey guys, today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Fred. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, MP3 player. That's audibletrial.com/Fred. But for now, enjoy the show. Hey guys, welcome. Let me ask you this. Do you aspire to a creative life? Are you tired of working 9 to 5? Are you asking yourself, what is the point of it all? Or do you want to take your creativity to the next level? Welcome to the Creative Magic Unchained. This podcast is about unleashing your creativity. We talk to experts. We step into the unknown. It is an inspirational podcast. It is a magical podcast. It is an intuitive podcast as we chat with enigmatic, charismatic people from around the world, from musicians, singers, radio hosts, business people, photographers, everything in between. I am Fred Epps, and I'm talking to you. I'm residing in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. You know that. It's freezing, man. I have snow almost halfway to my window. Anyway, another subject for another time. I am your host. I'm a businessman. I'm an artist. I'm a writer. I'm a friend. I'm a partner. I'm an animal lover. This podcast is free. Free. We all like free stuff, don't we? Every time you download it on iTunes or Stitcher. So please go over there, subscribe. It is listener supported. So tell a friend if you really think that if you think that this can really inspire somebody else, tell a friend. I'm telling you, this thing we have such an inspiring conversation with all the experts that come. It's so amazing. Anyway, tell a friend, leave a 5-star, leave a review on iTunes. It really helps a brother out. It helps the podcast. It helps everybody, and it helps me to bring you even greater guests. So, and for more podcasts, free gifts, Q&A articles, subscribe at frederickby.com. That's Frederick, my first name, by, like bye-bye.com. On Twitter, at byfred. On Facebook, simply type in my name, Frederick By, and check out the YouTube channel. That's right, Creative Magic, for previous episodes. Okay, today, let me ask you this. So what does a man do after 20 years in corporate America? Well, I'm going to tell you what. In Douglas Coleman's case, he continues to pursue the musical dream he has carried since his youth. Coleman set out to have a career in music in the early 80s. That's right, but he became frustrated and opted for the corporate world. The corporate world. God bless all you corporate people out there. If you're a corporate person, God bless you. Anyway. So though Douglas's musical temperament, in the business world were at odds, Coleman stayed his vocational course for over 20 years before surrendering to his muse. If you're a creative guy, you know what a muse is, don't you? Right? It's hard to describe it. It's so inspiring, and it's a creative process, right? It's part of the creative process. All right, so he left his job in the USA for Thailand, where he set up a studio and is chasing his musical dream. In Thailand, he found his small farming village to be an environment conducive to songwriting and creativity in general. Working with legendary London, UK producer Stuart Epps, Coleman produced several captivating tracks that are catching the attention of industry professionals. Hey, we've all been there. Most of us have the same story that, Douglas has. Whether we've been in corporate America for 20 years or 5 years, hey, we know how it is, right? And sometimes it's not everybody's destiny. It's not everybody's purpose to be in corporate America or corporate Canada or corporate Thailand, wherever you are in the world as you're listening to this. It's not everybody's destiny. It certainly wasn't mine, and it's not Douglas's. So without further ado, we're gonna get fired up for this during this conversation, and we're gonna get there right after this. Quick thanks to radioguestlist.com where you can find people to interview for free. Thank you guys. Thank you for your support. And for advertisement offers, you can reach me at info@fredericbaye.com. That's info@fredericbaye.com and use the subject advertising. All right. So hello. So we are here at Creative Magic Unchained. We are here with Douglas Coleman, singer-songwriter, musician, a radio talk show host, and owner of DJC Music and DJC Productions. How are you?
Hi, very good. Thank you for having me on the show.
Awesome. We're honored. So all right before we dive into this, the main subject, talk to us a little bit about your background.
Well, let's see. I was brought up in Boston. I grew up in Boston. When I was 18, I moved to New York City to become a music rock and roll star. And that lasted for about 3 years. And I went back to Boston. My father got sick, so I had to go home. And I never returned to it. I went and got a real job, as it were, and worked for 20 years away from music and away from creativity. Now I've come back to it all these years later, and the whole landscape has completely changed from what it was in the 1980s. But I'm doing that. I'm doing music. I started a production company, and then in June of 2015, I started doing radio shows. And that's been really good. Originally, I thought I was going to do the radio shows to sort of help promote my music. But then the radio show has been doing really well. And at this point in my life, now I'm 54 years old. So I'll take whatever I can get. Wherever I can make a splash in the entertainment industry and make a wave of some sort, that's what I'll do. So if it's going to be the radio show, then that's fine. If it's going to be with music, that's fine. But it's changed so much, and I think I'm being realistic when I say that, 54 is a little bit late to be starting your music career. Most people, and they seem to be getting younger and younger. I mean, the kids that are the big stars that are coming out now, they're all getting signed when they're 15 years old. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. So whatever I can do. And, I love doing it. So that's really the reason I do it. It's because I'm very passionate about doing it. Making money in this business is tough, but, if I can make a little bit of money and really enjoy what I'm doing, then I'm happy.
That's an awesome story because, okay, so you were out of the music industry for 20 years. And
I was yeah.
Sorry?
No, I said yes. Yeah. Yes, I was.
And that's fascinating to me because you've always loved music, right?
Oh, sure.
And what made you walk away from it for 20 years?
Oh, well, it was a combination of things.
I mean psychologically, like, emotionally, what?
Well, emotionally, I didn't really want to get away from it. It was the reality of life and having no money and having to have a job that I could pay the bills and some heavy kind of convincing by my mother that I should stop wasting my time doing music and go get a real job. Stop all this nonsense,
Yeah.
So it was a lot of that. And the 3 years that I was in New York, I mean, we had a great time. We were starting to build up a following, but, there wasn't much money. And I don't know. I guess I just took her advice and, said, okay, all right. Because I was gone for a while. My father was sick and I stayed home for a while until he passed away. And to go back again, I mean, by that time, the band that I was with had already broken up and they were on to doing other things. And So I would have had to come back and start over again, basically with no money and with, no sort of support from my family. So I just said, okay, all right. And then I got stuck into the job. I mean, once you get a job like that, you get bills coming in every month. You can't just walk away. And the time just went by, 20 years, and all of a sudden, boom. It's like, wow, But it was always in the back of my mind to get back to it at some point.
Did it eat at you? Because I am positive that during those 20 years, I'm sure somewhere in your soul, music was there and was like kind of, hey, what about me? You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely. The only problem was that when you work a really like a heavy duty job, when you come home, you're tired. And what working that kind of a job sort of stifled the creative side of my brain.
Wow.
So I didn't really have much creativity going on there. I was so stressed and concentrated on doing the work. In the 20 years that I worked there, I only wrote 2 songs. And since I've been away from that, since I got back to it, I've probably written 20 songs. So it's, yes, it was eating at me. And occasionally I would get in the mood and I would play, but most of the time I would just play. I wouldn't really write. The writing side really took a dive while I was working. But once I got out of that environment and got into a space where I could clear my head of all that sort of junk, then it started to flow again. When I started writing, like 2 or 3 songs would come all at once, and there was a couple of periods there where I was just writing like a madman.
Sometimes. Oh, were you gonna say something or?
No.
Okay. Sometimes it kills me when I hear people. They know what their life's purpose is. So many people are searching for what their dharma is. I don't know if you know the term dharma, but their life's purpose.
Sure.
Their what am I here to do? And they don't. So many people ask that question of themselves. And then you have people who it's clear what their dharma is, what their life's purpose is, and we don't pursue it because we're afraid, we're going to talk about fears later on, but I mean, you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
And to me, the contrast is so like mind-boggling. It's like, wow, we're just not conscious. Fears hold us back in so many ways.
Yes.
Growing up, what was the mindset of the adults around you when it came to creativity?
My parents liked my music, but they didn't really encourage it as something that might be possible to do as a career. To them, that wasn't an option. It was okay. It was like playing golf or something. It's okay as a hobby, or it's okay to do that, after work, but not as work. And so I wasn't encouraged to push. I wasn't really pushed to do it. I did it on my own, and I was disciplined enough to practice every day when I came home from school. And I hadn't really started writing yet. I was still sort of developing my chops as a piano player. And so I was, playing everybody else's music. It wasn't until I was about 17 or 18 that I started writing. But they didn't, like I said, they didn't encourage it as a career path. But, if I played a song or sang something, they say, oh, that's nice. But that was about the response I got. Other than that, music teachers and things at school were very encouraging. In fact, I probably wouldn't have gone to New York at all had it not been for one teacher at my high school that just said, you got to go. It's so obvious. It was so obvious to her that was my direction. So she really encouraged me to go. And kind of reluctantly, my parents sort of said, well, okay, you can go. But I'm glad at least she encouraged me, because I probably wouldn't have gone. I probably just would have went to college and got the job 3 years earlier.
How were you in school? Did you like school?
Yes, I did like school. I did well in school. It came very easy for me, but I mean, most subjects. I didn't like the heavy science classes. Those really bored me to death. But I did love stuff like sociology and history and English, and I loved to read. I was a really avid reader in school. So anything other than science, I did well in.
Because oftentimes creatives, creative people have a hard time in school with, as you said, science, math, logical type of endeavors,
Yeah, that's true. Like I said, I wasn't real good with science, but I loved history and I loved English, literature, any, even stuff like Shakespeare and things like that. I would love to read. I was a real avid reader.
All right. Fast forward. What kind of music are you producing right now? Or are you writing?
I'm sorry. Can you say that?
No, I just said, let's fast forward to today. What kind of music are you producing right now?
Well, I haven't written anything in a while because the radio show sort of has been taking up my time. Mm-hmm. But I'm doing...
Or what kind of music inspires you? Inspires the creativity,
I listen to everything. Absolutely everything. I'm not a big rap fan, I'll have to say. I think I'm just too old. I came up, well before rap. But I love classic rock. I love jazz. I like classical music. I like pop. I like some country music. Anything that's got a good melody and a good singer. If it's got those two ingredients, I'll listen to it. And it can, in many cases, it'll inspire me to sort of write. If I fall in love with a song, say, oh yeah, and then I'll go to the piano and say, well, let me see if I can write one like that. Not to copy it per se, but something in that particular groove or on that page in the music book. But the last song I did is called Give Something, and it's pop rock with a little country flavor to it, I guess. And that was the last song I put out. I put that out about 6-7 months ago.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about your creative. How that's just a subject that fascinates me is the creative process. How does music come through you? Where how does it come through you?
Well, most of the time it's come through while I was driving. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I get just these phrases or a tune or both. A lyrical phrase and a tune will come into my head at the same time. And I'll be, I like that. That's good. And then I'll rush home and get to the piano and write a song around that. That'll be like the hook of the song. And then I can write a song completely around it. That's one way I do it. The other way is I'll start with the lyrics and I'll write a story, something I want to say, or an idea, a concept that I want to make a little story about. And then I'll kind of compress it into lyrical format. Take that to the piano and then try to write a song to it. The lyrics will already be finished and just try to come up with a tune for that. Those are the two ways generally that I work to write songs.
Don't you find that the creative process is just mysterious? You know,
it's mysterious when it comes to you, when it's going to come to you, because you never know.
Yeah.
I've gone through long, dry periods where I couldn't write anything. You know, you can't force it. It's not like a real job where every Tuesday at 9:00 I'm going to sit down and write a song. It doesn't work that way. You know, you have to be inspired. And where the inspiration comes from is the big mystery. Because I have no idea when it's going to come, how it's going to come. But when it does, it sort of hits you in the side of the head. It's strong. But where it comes from, I have no idea.
Are you spiritual?
You mean religiously?
Not necessarily. But do you believe in something higher?
I'm not sure. Okay. But I wouldn't bet my present life on the idea that there is something else in the afterlife. In other words, a lot of people who are very religious people live this life as kind of a matter of fact. And they say, well, it doesn't really matter about this life because the next one is what's important. You know, so they sacrifice and they do this and they live by these real strict guidelines and things saying, okay, you know, I'm going to suffer in this life, but when I get to the next one, that's when it's going to be good. And that I don't believe, because nobody really knows what happens when you die. It's never been proven by anybody. So I won't take that chance that there's nothing beyond. So I'm going to enjoy this life that I have, that I know is here, that's tangible, that I can touch, that I can feel. You know, not to say that I'm running around like a lunatic, but I'm not going to deprive myself of anything just because somebody said it's wrong to do. I don't know. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, because the reason I'm asking this is because how we receive, like how you receive the music, there has to be something higher. You know what I mean? To me, the creativity is spirituality in a way. You're connected to something. You don't know what it is. You don't know what the name. You don't know how it's. You don't know what it looks like, but it's kind of there.
Well, it's a good point. I take your point. A lot of creative people have sort of, I don't know, they process information that comes to them differently, or they have the ability to process it differently so that it comes out as a song, a book, a painting, a sculpture, whatever it is that they do. If that's spiritual, okay, you know, I'm open to that idea. But I think for me personally, the way I sort of justify it is just saying I was born with a gift that I am able to take a little phrase and create a song. You know, I don't know how I do it, but I can. I have the ability to do it.
Yeah.
Just like some people are great athletes. They're born with the ability to run and jump, and you know, I can't do that at all. I can't dance. I can't. I'm terrible at that. You know, my body doesn't want to do what my brain says, but I can write a fairly good song. So I don't know. I think people's DNA is different. I think, you know, it comes from maybe in your family somewhere. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Hard to say.
I was speaking to a lady actually, and she's a musician too, and she's telling me how she hears music. You know, how she, you know, she's gonna put out her second album now, but she you know, and I believe that because I listened to an episode from with Lionel Richie, and he said the same thing. He was in school. He heard music in his head. And I think that's kind of what you're telling me. And that is a gift. You know, that is, you know, I mean, you hear music in your head, right?
Yeah.
like as you said earlier.
Sure.
And anyway, that's that's where does it come from? Only because I don't have that. I don't hear music in my head, but I hear stories. I know stories. I can picture stories in my head.
Well, there's people that have had photographic memories where they could just look at a page of print and then turn away from it and read the whole page to you. There have been people that could do that. That's amazing. I can't do that. But it's just people have different abilities, different strengths, different things that they can do. I don't know where it comes from.
All right, just before continuing this conversation, for you, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. I personally recommend the audiobook The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, or you can choose the audiobook of your choice for free by trying audible.com. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Fred. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Fred. You will be entertained, and at the same time, you will help a brother out. So, everybody wins. Go to audibletrial.com/Fred for your free audiobook. Okay. Fears. Most people, and I think it relates to a little bit to what you said earlier, most people never dive into their full, creativity, their full passions, and because number one fear, in my opinion, is money. How, now that you're wiser, I guess, how do you deal with that? How you psychologically deal with that?
How
do you overcome it?
Overcome the fear of doing what I love to do?
Yeah, and taking the financial risk.
Okay. Well, you have to have enough money that you can support yourself. And working for 20 years and putting a lot away, I was fortunate enough to be able to do that. Once you can pay the bills and eat, then it sort of affords you the time to go back to the creative process. Or you can work a job and do it. That was impossible for me. I couldn't do that. I don't know why. But once I started working, the creative process just kind of died. And it took me until I got away from that to get it back. The fear of not having any money is a big fear for everyone, not just creative people.
That's true.
That's a reality for just everyone on the planet. But yeah, we all need money to live. We all have bills to pay. And unfortunately, in this business, money is hard to come by. The classic line of the starving artist. I mean, it's a reality. It's easier now to get your stuff out there because of the technology. Before the internet, it was much more difficult to get recognized. Mm-hmm. Now, anybody can put a song out on the internet. Anybody can write a book and get it out there for everyone to read. But it's a double-edged sword because on the one hand, it's easy to get everything out there. There's so much more stuff out there because everybody can put it out there. And there's a lot of stuff out there that probably shouldn't be out there because it's really not that good. So it's still difficult to get recognition because there's just so much stuff out there that you sort of get lost in the pile. But money, for an artist who's very passionate about what he does, money shouldn't be the end all. If you're really passionate about writing music, then you go to work every day at McDonald's or wherever you have to work to make your money. And then when you come home at night, you try to write on the weekends or write on your vacations or whenever you can. it was difficult for me. I just couldn't do it. But I know people that do. I know people that work and write. And then eventually, if they're lucky, the writing takes off and they can quit working at McDonald's and do the writing for full time. So, like I said, I don't think, for me, it was never a fear of not having money, but it was a fear of, I don't know, I suppose not doing what I was supposed to do. Maybe that was one reason why I gave it up for 20 years.
Okay.
You know, parents are very influential in people's lives, or they can be. And, you know, I'm glad I came back to it. I don't have the regret. I don't regret taking 20 years off, because regret is certainly no good in your life. There's no benefit to regretting anything. But I don't fear, like, I'm trying to think, well, like, you know, stage fright or something like that. I never had that. I was more fearful of reality than I ever was of performing.
Yeah.
I would have a more difficult time going to the supermarket than I would getting up on stage and singing for 100 people. So my fear manifested itself differently than probably a lot of other people's did.
Okay. What about failure? How do you deal with that now? What is your view? A lot of creative people are afraid to fail, and that's the reason why they never fully dive into their passion. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say that you've got to get over that, because
How?
Yeah. You just keep on going. It's like the old line about, if you fall off the horse, you get back on. Every artist that I've ever worked with and have known has had infinitely more rejections than acceptances. When they've submitted their music to record labels, radio stations, producers, promoters, whatever, they would have a stack of no's and maybe a couple of yeses. And that's always the way it's been. I've never known anybody that everything they turned out was a yes, unless they were already famous. You know, like the Beatles, pretty much once they got famous, they couldn't do any wrong. For the period of their career. Every song they did went to number one, just about. But they're the exception. I'm talking about somebody who hasn't made that kind of success yet. You just got to keep going, you know? Yeah. And if you're going to fail on stage, fail perfectly, because then you'll get a laugh and you'll kind of cover your mistake.
What do you mean?
I can remember one time I was in the middle of a song and my brain just went blank and I could not remember where the song went. And I looked at my one of the guys in the band with this sort of look in my face like, I don't know what to do now, you know. And they kept going with the song, and I just froze for a couple of seconds. And instead of, you know, just staying frozen, I just started banging on the piano like, you know, like a little kid. And people started laughing. They thought it was part of the act. And then it clicked my brain in, and I got back to where we were. But for some reason, I just lost the train of thought there for about, I don't know, 1 second, 2 seconds. And I could have just froze and climbed under the piano, but that wouldn't have been as funny as to just bang on the piano and make these horrible noises like it was some kind of a gag, you know. So, but for that second I was frozen. I was, yes, very fearful. But you cover it. You get, you know, you recover. And then like people, like actors who forget their lines in a live theater show, they cover themselves somehow, you know.
All right.
I don't know.
All right, we are here with Douglas Coleman. He's a singer, songwriter, a musician, a radio talk show host, and owner of DJC Music and DJC Productions. That's very interesting what you said. Most artists fail. It's part of the game. It's like being an entrepreneur. Speaking of that, do you feel that, let's say you're in the music industry and you say you're working with a lot of musicians, do you feel you have to be a businessman? Like, if you say, I'm going to live off my art, I got to be a businessman. Would you say that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It becomes a different game. I had this conversation with one of my guests on my talk show. And he said, you have to decide whether you want to be an artist or you just want to do your art, or do you want to make a living doing it? He says, once you make the decision that you want to make a living doing it, then it becomes a business. And then you have to treat it that way. And that's why most artists get managers, because they can't handle the business side of their art. Either they take it too personally if somebody rejects them and they go run off in a corner and cry, or they just don't have the brain necessary to handle finance and accounting and what little money they might get that gets spent on something, and it's never reinvested in their business. So once you make the decision that it's going to be something you want to make a living at, then yeah, it's absolutely a business.
All right. When you mentioned earlier that you have dry periods, what do you do when you're blocked and nothing comes to you?
There's not much you can do. You've just got to kind of wait it out, because the more you force it, the more aggravated you get. I mean, I've done that where I've just been very frustrated and I wanted to get a song written, and I'd sit at the piano and just sit there and play something and try to write something, and whatever I was playing always ended up being some other song that somebody else had already written. Songs are interchangeable to some point. And I'd be like, no, that's that song. Oh, no, that's that one. And then you just get frustrated. So I can't push it, If I go 6 months or something and I don't write a song, well, okay, c'est la vie. But I don't think there's anything you can do. I don't know. I haven't heard anybody say, oh, I have a cure for when I have dry spells. I've never heard that. If somebody does, please let me know, because I'd be interested to hear what it was. But I can't fight it. I just have to let it go, ride it out, and try to keep my mind clear, and then hopefully something will come along that'll spark the creative engine.
What would you say to someone? Because as you said earlier, our education has a lot to do. Our parents are very influential in our, in what we think, about our creativity, about that kind of endeavor. What would you say to someone who thinks, that he or she is not creative? I think a lot of people think they're not creative, and they are. They're just, they're just not in the right field. If you put me in, if I'm an engineer, I'm probably never going to be creative, because I just don't, it doesn't resonate with me. What would you say to them?
Well, I guess you'd have to determine whether they did have creativity or not. I mean, if it was so suppressed that it wasn't coming out, then maybe they need to find a new environment. A lot of times artists try to get rid of the block by going somewhere else. They go out into the middle of the desert or up into a mountain or somewhere where they just get away from everything so they can clear their brain. Maybe they need to do that and see. But, there are people that just aren't creative. I know a few people like that. They just have no imagination at all. They're great accountants. They're the people you want to do your taxes at the end of the year, but they're never going to write a song.
But I mean, even if you're an accountant, I have a friend she's an accountant, and she tells me she sees numbers in her sleep, in her dreams. Isn't that
Maybe
creativity? I don't think she's overworked, to be honest. But
I don't know if seeing numbers in your dreams is a sign of creativity or not. I don't know.
But I mean, my point is, are we not all creative in some way? Like, without being like a musician or a writer, or if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're or even an accountant, where you find new ways to deal with a certain situation. You search.
Well, sure, yeah, and that's their creative ability. I know people that are very creative when they go to the supermarket, and they know exactly how to hit each aisle and each section so that they minimize the amount of times they have to go up and down the aisle, and they can get out of the supermarket in record time. Where I'll be in there for 2 hours, they'll be in there for 20 minutes. So sure, that's a creative ability. I think creativity will manifest itself in different ways in different people. But I'm not going to suggest that everybody has the ability to write music or to paint or to sculpt or to write a book. I think certain people have the ability and the gift to do it, and certain people don't. I don't have the ability to be a great athlete. I never did. So I would never kid myself to think, well, I can do that, because I would go out and try to run, and I would get 100 yards down the street and drop dead of a heart attack. I just know that would happen. So I don't even bother to try. It's not something I'm really interested in doing. But I think people need to know their limitations as well as nurture their strengths. And like we started about this conversation at the very beginning, when you said it's really nice when people know what their dharma is, that helps. If you really know what it is you're supposed to be doing, that's a big help in this life, because then you don't waste so much time chasing things that you're not supposed to be doing or you shouldn't be doing.
What do you think stifles that? That dampens the, you just mentioned when you know what dharma is. What do you think dampens our dharma, our awareness of our dharma?
Well, it could be your parents. It could be the environment you grew up in. It could be just anything. Fear, like we talked about. Lots and lots of things can push you away from what it is you're supposed to be doing. And then some people just genuinely don't have a clue what they're supposed to be doing. Yeah. They go to the guidance counselor in high school, and the guidance counselor looks at all their test results and says, well, you did really well in science and you did really well in this, and so maybe you should go get a job being a scientist. And the student will say, oh, okay. And they'll go to college and they'll study science and they'll get a job being a scientist, and they have no idea why.
Mick Jagger, I read that Mick Jagger was the guidance counselor, and the counselor told him he was supposed to be an accountant. That's what I read somewhere.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
I don't know if it's true, but anyway. All right, what is the number one habit that fuels your creative life today? Do you have a habit?
Do I have a habit?
Yeah, like maybe, do you have a ritual or something that you do every day? You take a walk? Do you ride a horse? Do you have a habit that you go, when you do that, well, you'll tell me the car, but I mean, when you do that, it kind of puts you in a creative state.
No, I don't. And in fact, I try to avoid that because I think working for 20 years at a 9-to-5 job forced me into a routine. Every day, get up at the same time, drive the car to work, come home. You know what I mean? It was the same thing every day. Eat my lunch at the same time, blah, blah, blah. And that's what stifled my creativity. So now I go to sleep when I want to. I get up when I want to. Obviously, if I have an appointment or something to do. But I try to avoid that kind of a ritual or a habit or something that's routine, because to me, that was what hindered my abilities. Mm-hmm. If I'm just sort of free to wander, that's a better place for my brain, creative-wise.
What is as artists, oftentimes we want to say a message. You want to tell a message through our art. What is your message? Do you have one?
A message to who?
Just a message that you have to say. As artists, oftentimes their art, they want to say something through their art. They have something to say to the world in a way. Do you have
I don't have a specific message. I think, the songs that I've written all had slightly different messages. I don't have a particular, one message that I want to tell everybody.
Okay.
No.
All right.
I think, like I said, if I'll get different ideas and if I want to tell about this particular idea, and then I'll write a song about that. Maybe I'll get another idea about something else, but not one particular one.
All right, we're going to wrap this up. If you were stuck on an island, no one else, you have $500, a laptop, what would you do the next 7 days?
If I'm stuck on an island with $500 and a laptop?
Yeah. What would you do in the next 7 days?
Well, are there any stores on the island?
No stores.
Oh, so the 500 is useless. Do I have internet?
Well, I don't know. Yeah. You have internet.
Okay. Wow. Well, I guess I would download as much music as I could get and movies that I could get to fill up the hard drive. And then that's going to be my entertainment, because if I'm not leaving the island, I need stimulus, I need to be listening to music or watching movies or something like that. So I don't know what the $500 would do. Maybe I could, buy all the downloads online with the 500.
Well, I mean, my point is, how would you make money in a way? How would you use your whatever gift you have to, to kind of get out of your, just to expand, let's say. I don't know if it's clear.
I'm not quite following the question. I'm sorry.
Okay. No. The point was, how would you succeed in that situation, financially speaking? Because like I said earlier, a lot of creative people, it's a fear of money, or lack of money. What kind of business would you start? Let's put it that way.
But I'm stuck on an island?
Yeah.
I think priority one would be finding enough food to eat.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of a business I could start. If I was stuck on the island for a definite period of time, and I knew I was getting off the island in a month, then there was all kinds of things I could do. But if I was going to be there forever, I don't know. I guess I would go back to the what was that? Robinson Crusoe kind of, build the house out of bamboo and try to build a radio out of a coconut kind of thing.
Okay. Okay, cool. That's a good answer. All right. Hey, where can we find you? Where can we find what you do and your rate? And talk to us about your talk show talk show.
Okay. Well, my website is douglascolemanmusic.com. And from there, you can find all of the information about the show and about my music and what I'm doing and the production company. It's all on that site. The show is on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern and also Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on WROM in Detroit. And then we just got a new syndicate on the Radio Alternative in London, and I'm not sure when it's going to be on there, but that's just getting set up. So the show will probably run 3 times a week, on my speaker account and on WROM and on the Radio Alternative. So, and then the archives are on YouTube and Mixcloud, so you can go in there if you want and listen to the old shows.
All right. Well, go check out Douglas Coleman's show. So that's it, Douglas. Thank you very much for appearing. Thank you very much for this interview. It was very insightful. It was fun, and I learned actually.
Oh well, that's great. Thank you for having me on the show. It was a real honor to be on.
Hey, thank you very much. All right, guys. Thank you, gang, for listening. So that's about it. Thank you, Douglas Coleman. Man, again, every time I speak to these people, it just inspires me. I just love doing this. I just love doing this podcast. Hey, I'm going to tell you a little secret. I'm doing this podcast because I really want to speak people like Douglas and people we've had on the show. It's my excuse to speak to them. And then not only that, I guess to share it with all of you. So, hey, thank you, Douglas. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your inspiration. Again, go to frederickby.com, search Douglas Coleman, and you will find his links. You will be able to get in touch with his music. And you'll be able to listen and to download this episode. And that's about it, guys. It's time for me to ride off into the sunset. Hey, Audible trial is, I just want to say audibletrial.com/Fred. Audible is really cool by allowing us to have 1 month free, to you listeners on top of it. So it's an exclusive offers for you listeners, basically. audibletrial.com/Fred. Try it for 30 days. You're going to see how fun it is. And you know what? You have over 180,000 books. That's just amazing. So thank you, Audible, for this offer. And at the same time, when you do it, it helps a brother out here so I can keep doing this and bringing the best possible interviews to you. With this, catch me on Facebook, Frederick By, on Twitter @ByFred. You check out my YouTube channel, Creative Magic, or for previous episodes. And with this, I just want to say, stay safe. And don't forget, live with purpose, passion, and love. Bye-bye.